There you go.
All right. Yep. All right. So welcome to Torah School. Apostle calls it Torah School. This week's Torah portion is Vayeshev. And what does it mean, class?
He settled,
That's right.
or he dwelt.
Yeah. So we're going to write, do you guys like he settled or he dwelt? I'm just going to put it in he settled.
Yeah.
Well,
Let's just put dwell. Everybody wins. It's like Wolfie says, everyone's a winner. Welcome to the view. Welcome to the view. I think that's so funny. All right. So that's what our Torah portion. We're coming out of Genesis or Bereshit, chapter 37, verse 1 to chapter 40, verse 23. And what do we see in here? What do you guys think? You know how we always just kind of see a theme. Did you guys see anything while you were reading it? Anybody?
Joseph is sold to slavery in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
So
So we can add that note. Yeah, we're gonna learn about Joseph, right?
his brother's jealousy.
Right. We're gonna learn about jealousy.
he's a dreamer. He's a man of dreams.
He's got a special coat. What else did we see though? We see Judah and Tamar.
He was good looking.
How
Like
does
me.
that fit in, right?
Hmm?
You said he was good looking?
Like me, yeah.
Yeah, very handsome man. Judah and Tamar. Did anyone ask themselves why did they slip this story in?
What, Tamar?
Judah and Tamar?
It comes
Why?
after.
Yeah, you guys know how I read my Bible. I always ask questions.
Yeah, I'm trying to think why. Because Tamar was,
Yeah, we're just kind of overviewing like what we saw in our. We say Joseph, he experienced jealousy. He also gets a coat. We see Judah and Tamar. What else did y'all see?
His dream.
His dreams. So really, we're introducing. What were you gonna say, Bishop?
I was trying to remember.
I just know that she brought proof of the Messiah, but I don't really remember. I didn't quite look into her being in the story.
We'll figure that out. Yeah, but that's right. It is the Messiah. Because it's just kind of like, we always got to think about, got to wrap this thing and point it back to Jesus. And that's what Tamar is going to do for us. There's a little hint there. All right. And then we see Joseph's in prison. Right? For 12 years. Anybody know the significance of 12?
Jesus was 12 at some point.
Well, I
Faith.
Tribes.
12
tribes.
Right.
12 disciples.
You can say 12 tribes, but really it's about faith. Because somebody forgot about him. And he had to finish his sentence, right?
Yeah.
So, faith, woman with the issue of blood, 12 years. All right, so let's start kind of breaking this down. Doing like I always do. Gonna walk through this Bible verse by verse. Jacob dwelled. I'm at chapter 37, and it says, "And Jacob dwelt in the land," which is. Remember when I told you the Torah portion? The first couple of words in the sentence will tell you what the Hebrew word means. So it says, "And Jacob dwelt in the land therein, wherein his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan." So actually, that was where they're talking about where Jacob's father Isaac dwelled, right? In Canaan.
Where he lived there.
And then he settled there. And we're still trying to get Jacob back to his dad. Because remember, this last week he was supposed to be traveling and he still hasn't made it to his father's house yet. So then it says, "These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought to his father their evil report. Does anyone see anything strange in those scriptures there? He was a tattletale. That's what younger kids do. I'm a tattletale. I can't keep secrets. I always say, don't tell me if you don't want to get told.
I never noticed which brothers he was with. I just always assumed he was just with his brothers.
Right.
He was specifically with his
Brothers.
Those were his brothers, but
I don't
they
know.
didn't say, because who was Joseph's mom?
Rachel.
Why didn't they say Rachel in there? They say those two sons, right? Those two mothers, and then they say evil report. It's because they want us to realize, right, that even though Joseph is not so much a tattletale elder, those children come from those,
Concubines.
the line that were, the corrupt line. It was Bilhah and Zilpah, right?
Mm-hmm.
And their children are evil, in the sense of they have that blood, that evil blood, that kind of fell in there through Ham with Zilpah and Bilhah. And what they're saying is when the decision to choose right in the sight of their father was an option, they would always go the other way. So that's why they're just kind of drawing our attention to the seed. And remember how, like, Joseph was supposed to be the firstborn because he was supposed to marry Rachel first, and he's the firstborn in that line. So anyway, they just want us to kind of look at that and take it apart. So he coming back with an evil report. It says, now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. And in the Hebrew, it said it's just a garment with long sleeves, and it's very colorful. So I decided to wear a colorful shirt today because of that. But yeah, he loved him because he was the son of his old age, and he was the son of his first love, right? And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him and could not speak peaceably to him. You guys imagine what that's like? I don't know if you have siblings, like when your parent favors someone, they're always throwing there, look what this one did, look what that one did, right? So it must have been very hard for those children to kind of stand under his presence because he was good, he was favored, and he got the jacket. Like, why couldn't you buy 11 other coats? You know, Dad, we're out here in the weather too.
Right.
So, because of that, you know, they already had an issue. If you think about Esau and his brother Jacob, there's always already a spirit of dissension. And that's the worst thing you can have in a family is when you can't come together. So, break that off. If you see that in your line anywhere, pray against that spirit and be peaceable to your family members. So he was creating that spirit of jealousy, kind of moving that forward in their line, and it's unfortunate that happened. Now we're moving on down, and Joseph was a dreamer. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him, they hated him. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it to his brethren, and they hated him yet the more. Now he's just as bad as Jacob or Israel. You guys remember when I told you when Israel moves into that town and he puts up his pillar of I serve the God of Most High, the Father of Abraham, Isaac. This guy, his son, is walking around town talking about I'm dreaming dreams that the Lord gave me, and I'm going to be your master. And you're the kid, you're the grunt of the family, right? So he's not really making friends. It's like he doesn't know how to get along. So Joseph dreamed more, and he said to them, "Hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose and also stood upright. And behold, your sheaves stood round about and made obeisance or bowed down to my sheaf. And his brethren said to him, Shall you indeed reign over us, or shall you indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words. And he dreamed another dream and told him to his brother and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. And he told it to his father and his brethren. And his father rebuked him and said to him, What is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall I and your mother and your brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to you to the earth? And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the saying or remembered it. Okay, so let's stop there. So let's talk about it. What do y'all see going on there? Because the Bible's always prophesying to us, right?
The mother.
Mm-hmm.
Who's my dead?
His mother is dead, but they're just talking about in the sense of if his mom is dead, I think his the one that was watching the other sons, her handmaiden would be the one that would help him along. So he still has mothers. So and they were all in the same house. But yeah, it's just kind of prophesying to this kid does not realize how great his dream is going to be, right? Because it's going to prophesy to the fact that his brothers are going to come back to him and need him for food and sustenance. But at the time, he didn't recognize it, and threw his dream in their face, which is not a good thing to do, because when you have a dream sometimes, you have to protect the dream. You definitely need to hold fast to the dream and believe it, but you got to keep certain things quiet, so you won't, mess your dream up or delay your time. Bishop, you have a comment?
Yeah, I just want to say you're very correct on that, because it's like inviting the enemy to attack you, to stop your vision from coming to pass.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, and let doubt come in there sometimes.
So, when you have a dream or vision, and the people that you may want to try to reveal it to, make sure that it's not your enemy.
Right, you got to find people that you have good relationship with and counsel.
Yeah, because he could have gone to his father.
Privately.
Just told his father.
Yeah. Like, hey, Dad, you're going to be my slave. It's not going to work out so well. All right. Now, and he told his father, right? So he told him, his father remembered it. Now, let's move on. It says in verse 12, and his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. Y'all remember Shechem?
Yes.
What happened in Shechem?
We killed everybody!
Right. They killed everyone and they took the spoils. They had so much property and cattle that they left the cattle in Shechem, right? And so the boys would use that as an excuse to go run and play. And these were grown men, but they would use that as an excuse to go and not tend the sheep properly. So Joseph, the tattletale, would always be sent to track them down because his dad knew that they weren't being right or doing what they were supposed to do. And then all of a sudden they changed the name. Because we're talking about Judah, then all of a sudden they're talking about Israel. Y'all see that? I'm sorry, Jacob. Talking about, thank you for correcting me, Minister Shane. But y'all see that? They just changed the name.
I did. I spoke it up.
You saw? Okay, so now it says, and Israel said to Joseph, why do you think they changed the name?
I think he's speaking from his anointing. Christian. That's his power.
That's his power? What you say?
I agree.
It's always the answer. We will always be right if we say God is prophesying. God is talking to the children of Israel. God is talking to his bride. So what did Jesus say? He said, I came for these people, right? I came for my flock. I'm looking for my sheep. So when they changed his name to Israel, it's because they're not talking about Jacob anymore. They're talking about the nation or Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob's seed.
Right.
So that's what's happening there, guys, okay? All right, so he says, Israel said Israel said to Joseph, "Do not your brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send you to them." And he said to him, "Here am I." And that what Jesus said when God told him, who's talking to himself, because God is Jesus, who has the Holy Spirit. Let's go down and tend these sheep. So he said, "Here am I." And he said to him, "Go, I pray you, see whether it be well with your brethren and well with the flocks, and bring me word again." So he sent him out to the vale of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a certain man, an unknown man, could be an angel, it could be Jesus. I know, if y'all know, I know, Jesus has a bodysuit, and he just shows up sometimes in the Bible. But they say it's an angel too. But they didn't name this person. It's just some random person out in the field directing people to where they need to go. It says, a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, "What seek you?" And he said, "I seek my brethren. Tell me, I pray you, where they feed their flocks." Right? And the man said, "They are departed from here, for I heard them say, 'Let us go to Dothan.'" And Joseph went after his brethren and found them in Dothan. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near to them, they conspired against him to slay him. Here comes that dreamer, right? I mean, you can't miss him with his bright coat, right? His neon colors, he's glittering. And it says, "Come now for," oh wait, they said, far off, we could see him. And they said one to another, "Behold, this dreamer comes. Come now, therefore, and let us slay him and cast him into some pit, and we will say, some evil beast has devoured him, and we shall see what become of these dreams." Who does that sound like to y'all? Like in the entire Bible? Like this story, does it remind you of the Pharisees trying to conspire against Jesus? Right? We'll see about this Messiah. We'll fix you. That's what it reminded me of. And Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands and said, "Let us not kill him." Why?
Because he's the favorite son.
Because he's his brother.
He's his brother?
His brother.
But what happened to Reuben?
Reuben slept with his...
Reuben's got a curse on his head. Let's find it. Let's find it. Okay, let's jump over to Leviticus chapter 18. He's like, I don't need any more trouble.
Right.
Okay? Leviticus chapter 18. It's Levitical laws, Levites. That is a hint right there, Minister Joe, to why Tamar was interested. We're going to look at the Levirate. They call it the Levirate law. So, I guess, what do we say, Leviticus?
Leave her right.
That's a good one.
I like that.
18 and 17.
You know, you change that B to a B, you got liberate.
Yeah. Liberate us. Okay, so Leviticus chapter 18, verse 17 says, "You shall not uncover the nakedness of a woman and her daughter, neither shall you take her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter to uncover her nakedness, for they are her near kinswomen. It is wickedness." I don't think that's the right one. Let me find it. Oh, "You shall not uncover the nakedness of your brother's wife."
You talking about in terms of what Reuben did?
Yeah, I'm trying to. Oh, here we go. 14. Leviticus chapter 18, verse 14. It says, "You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's brother."
That's not close his wife.
Wife's daughter.
She
Maybe.
is not.
I'm sorry, y'all. Let me backtrack. These are all.
Verse 7, the nakedness
Thank
of
you.
your father,
Thank
the
you.
nakedness of your mother,
Yeah.
shall you not uncover. She is your mother. You shall not uncover her nakedness. The nakedness of your father's wife shall you not uncover. It is your father's nakedness.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so chapter 18, we'll just say that.
Chapter 18.
Verse 7, it says, the nakedness of your father or the nakedness of your mother shall you not uncover. She is your mother, you shall not uncover her nakedness. And then verse 8 says, the nakedness of your father's wife you shall not uncover. It is your father's nakedness. Okay, so that law right there is a forbidden act for Levitical priests. But as we already know, these laws were in place before they were written down. So they were still under the curse if they committed these acts.
But you presented it to Moses.
Uh-huh. Say that, Bishop?
I say God presented that law to Moses.
Right, to write it down for the first time. But it was still God's law since the beginning of creation.
Right.
Okay, so there we see that. Leviticus, so we're going to just say Leviticus chapter 18, just for the sake of being correct. That's where that law is found, where you shouldn't sleep with your mother, and that's what Reuben did. So he didn't want any more trouble from God or his dad. So he's like trying to say, let's not kill him. And Reuben said to them, shed no blood, but cast him into the pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands, to deliver him to his father again. And Reuben, he's trying to protect his brothers from this curse as well, right? From doing a misdeed. And it came to pass, when Joseph was come to his brother, they stripped him out of his coat, right? His coat of many colors that was on him. And they took him and cast him into the pit. And the pit was empty. There was no water in it. And they sat down to eat bread. And they lifted up their eyes and looked. And behold, so they're sitting down having a meal while their brother's yelling, get me out of here. Come on, guys. Right? And they're just eating. But I think as they were eating, right, I mean, there's time passing. They're starting to think about, what are we doing, right? But they didn't really get the realization that they shouldn't sell their brother. So the Midianites, it says, and they sat down to eat, and a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels, bearing spices and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. And Judah said to his brethren, what profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? So he's like, let's make some money out of this. Right? And you're like, come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hands be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content. So they were like, yeah, let's do that. And then there passed by the Midianites. Who are the Midianites, guys?
Esau's children.
Esau's children, right? But who else? What was the lady's name? Moses' wife?
Zipporah's father.
Yeah.
Midianites.
Yeah. Y'all remember that? Okay. So we got Levites. And then y'all know in the book of Jasher, there's like background of this war is going on between the brothers. And they're like fighting. Like, it was really strange. Did y'all read that? They got really angry. And they were fighting on their behalf. I don't know what was going on.
Judah's a bad dude.
Right. He's a warrior.
Yeah. He's a bad dude.
All right. Now, so did the Midianites show up?
Well, in the book of Jasher,
Mm-hmm.
when they were doing the transaction, the Midianites looked at Joseph and were saying, well, he can't be your slave. He looks better than all of you. and so that upset them.
Yeah.
They were like, take this money. And then they're like, no, why should we believe? We need to return this guy to his kingdom.
Right.
He's obviously from.
Right.
And so then they kind of had like a standoff, a battle of wits, and then Simeon freaked him out.
It was like Lord of the
It
Rings,
was
right,
about-
Shane?
Yeah, it was about to attack them. And then some Ishmaelites came.
Yeah. Exactly. But let's look at this. So they took his cloak, right? So they're trying to make parallels to why does this even matter in the grand scheme of things. It matters, but how does this relate to Jesus? They took his cloak. And then it says in verse 28 of chapter 37, then there passed by Midianites, merchantmen. And they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And they brought Joseph into Egypt. What does silver mean?
Redemption.
Right. So we got a lot going on in this story, right? Because Joseph right now, since Israel told him to go check on the flock, Joseph is Jesus. So Joseph, they tore his cloak, right? Casting lots, trying to figure out how we going to profit. They cast lots. They took his cloak. And then what else did they do? They bought him for 20 pieces of silver. And we know silver is signifies redemption. Right?
Yes.
Pay attention to this scene and remember it because it's going to make sense in a moment. It's like a almost like a first mention. Okay, so now, and he returned. Oh, okay. So they sold him. Now Joseph is gone. And Reuben returned to the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit, and he rent his clothes. He's freaking out, right? Because he's the firstborn anyway. Is he the firstborn?
Reuben is.
Yeah, so he's like freaking out. And he returned to his brother, and he's like, where is the child? And where shall I go? Wait, he says, the child is not, and where shall I go? So he's trying to ask his brothers what happened. And they took Joseph's coat and killed a kid of the goats. Right? And dipped the coat in blood. Is this ringing any bells, y'all? What's happening here? Look at Elder. What riddle? So we got a goat. We got some blood, so the goat's been slain, right? And we said we're trying to make a redemption, like putting this all together. What is it doing? It's an offering. Redeeming a sin offering.
So they offering.
They're doing a redemption of a sin offering.
Oh, really?
But they're using it as.
Could we say they're at? What are you gonna say, Joe?
They're using a redemptive process for a sin, but they're using it as a sin.
Key words: redemption, sin.
They knew they was in trouble.
What's happening here in the bigger scheme? Christ, yeah.
Redemption for us.
What is he's redeeming us from what?
From sin.
What is it?
Selling our brothers.
He's making atonement.
Okay.
It's Yom Kippur.
Gotcha.
This is Yom Kippur.
Yeah, this is where they get that. They dip his coat. Go all the, when you go look at the feast, you're gonna see a goat. You're gonna see some silver going on, and you can see some blood. It's Yom Kippur. So that's what's going on here. So we're gonna just put just say Yom Kippur. Because they had to make atonement. They don't know what they're doing, but that's what they're doing.
So the father won't suspect him.
Right. So the Father will forgive them. All right.
It's a hilarious atonement.
It is pretty
I'm
crazy.
gonna use this atonement as evidence for the
Right.
sin that we just committed.
Right. And then he says, where we at? So they sent the coat of many colors, right? Who's also the 12 tribes of Israel, right? Ephraim, all the people migrated all over the world. And they brought it to their father and said, this have we found. Know now whether it be your son's coat or no. And he knew it. And he said, it is my son's coat, and evil beasts have devoured him. Joseph is without doubt rent in pieces. You can't let your mind play tricks on you, right?
Yeah.
That's why they always say in those scenes, like, show me the body. And those people fall into the lake. Because until you have proof, you just went crazy. And this is the decline, like Jacob all of a sudden he begins to age because he takes grieving to a whole new level. Okay? In the background, Dina's gonna die. Who else died?
Everybody was dying.
3 people died over this grief.
I think his wife, I think Leah died.
Did Leah die?
No, I don't think Leah died. We'll find out. Let's see. Okay. But the point is, it's not, we'll find it later.
I think Isaac died.
Yeah. But Jacob was so grieved, and his grief was so intense that he aged himself. And then Dina died because she's sad. She's looking at her dad, you know. And it's not written here. It's in other books. But they died of grief. Okay. Now, so he's gone to the conclusion that his son is dead. And all his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him. But he refused to be comforted. And he said, "For I will go down into the grave to my son mourning." Thus his father wept for him. And you got to be careful with your words too, right? That's what this is telling us. Be careful with your words. Okay, because remember a couple weeks ago I told you when he finally sees his son, this beautiful man, they don't recognize him because he's in all this Egyptian garb. But Pharaoh looks at Jacob and he's like, "How old are you?" Because he's aged, you know. And back then they weren't aging like, you know, we age. We look like shriveled old prunes, right?
It's a stressful thing too. 'Cause
It's stressful.
When that happens, you know, and you're like grieving like that, it just sucks the.
It takes a toll on your body.
Life
You have to
life,
control
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And fix it with laughter. And the Midianites sold him into Egypt to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's and captain of the guard. Okay, now we're going to get a random story shoved in here. Because we're like, what happened to Joseph? Right?
Yeah.
In the middle of this. Okay, so this is really interesting. So let's read it. Talking about Judah and Tamar. Because where does Jesus have to come from?
Lion of Judah.
How he's going to do that if Judah makes this dumb decision to marry a Canaanite woman? People spilling their seed all over the place. God has promises to fulfill. And they're messing things up. Okay? So, we're going to see how Judah is redeemed through Tamar. Okay. And it came to pass at that time that Judah went down from his brethren and turned to a certain Adulamite whose name was Hira. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua, and he took her and went into her. What did God tell the children of Israel not to do?
Marry them.
Who are the Canaanites?
The people they should have married.
Right? They came from Ham.
Right.
Right? The Genesis 10, chapter 10, verse 21. No, that's not that reference. That is referencing where Tamar comes from. Ooh. Okay. So, and she conceived, this woman, Shua, she conceived and bore a son and called his name Error. Means oops. Okay, and she conceived again and bore a son and called his name Onan, and yet again conceived and bore a son, called his name Shelah, and he was Chazib when she bore him. Oh, and he was at Chazib when she bore him. And Judah took a wife for his firstborn, whose name was Tamar. Because Judah knew he's supposed to not marry the Canaanite woman, right? So then he goes and finds Tamar. Why did he pick Tamar?
Tamar.
For his son. Because he's like, I messed up my line. Let me see if I can fix it with my sons.
Who is Tamar?
Who is Tamar?
I knew
No, she's related to Shem. The priest.
That's Noah's son, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. But you don't get that unless you read the book of Joshua.
Yeah.
All right. So, if you look in the genealogy, chapter 45 of the book of Jasher, you'll see Tamar comes from Elam. And Elam was one of Shem's 5 sons. And you can find that in Genesis chapter 10, verse 21. Y'all want me to read it? Genesis chapter 10? Just to prove his sons, right? Genesis chapter 10. Genesis chapter 10 and 21. It says,
That's why you have to read and make these connections so that you understand why they were messing up and doing the different things and why sometimes they got the children that they got, you know, and different things like that. And then they try to fix it because they know they shouldn't be with these Canaanite women or they shouldn't be over here mingling with these kind, but it wasn't, like sometimes they put it towards like racism or something, but it had nothing to do with racism. It had to do with lifestyle and the fact that they always were worshiping other gods or would lead you to worship other gods than God himself.
remember that later, Apostle.
Yes, ma'am.
Huh?
So Elam
Uh-huh.
was Shem's firstborn son.
No, Eber.
No, it says, what's verse 21, it says, to Shem also the father of the children of Eber, right?
Yeah.
The brother of Japheth, an elder,
Yeah,
even
but
to him,
his son,
the children of Shem was Elam.
which would make him the firstborn.
And, well, they didn't say it was firstborn, they just named it the sons. But we can assume that.
But that's what I'm saying, because, I mean, the whole thing about in this day and age is the firstborn and their rights
Uh-huh.
is to be first mentioned.
Right?
So if Elam was the firstborn, I wonder if Tamar was the firstborn daughter.
Well, let's see, because they mentioned the genealogy. But let's see, Genesis 21, it says, to Shem also the father of all the children of Eber, the brother of Japheth, the elder even to him are children born. The children of Shem, Elam, Asher, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. Then they break down all of his sons.
Only reason I say that because if you're trying to amend for something so heinous that you do was wrong, for your firstborn child, it would make sense that you would try to get, the oldest daughter of, the firstborn son.
Yeah, she made
Tamar
it.
was,
Unless she was
she was his daughter-in-law.
We know he's his daughter-in-law, but we're talking about who her father and grandfather are. But she didn't necessarily have to be the firstborn daughter. She just had to be an available daughter in the right family.
She wasn't a Canaanite.
That's the point.
That's a big thing, yes.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
She wasn't a Canaanite. That was what was important.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, it's in the oh yeah, book of Jasher. But anyway, that's where you'll find her genealogy, where it spells out that she comes from the line of Shem. And I was trying to give y'all a reference. Here it goes. And the young woman was of comely appearance. I'm trying to back up. Anyway, we'll move on. But I'll look for that later. Okay, so anyway, that's where she comes from. Now, if she's the priest's daughter, that means she knows Levitical law, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to our portion. Where were we at, guys?
38 and 7.
38 and 7. Yeah, so Judah, he has his firstborn son, and he was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord slew him. right? Because he was married off to Tamar, but every time they were supposed to go and actually, what do they say, conjugate the marriage?
Yeah.
They didn't do it. In the Jewish midrash, the culture, they're raised to believe that Tamar never physically was with any of the men. So they were just spilling the seed to make a show of self-gratification, but they never conjugated the marriage, if that's the right word. Consummated. Conjugation is like math. But I think it's also science too. But consummated the marriage. So technically, Tamar was ritualistically pure all the way to when she went to her father's house. Okay.
She prostituted herself.
Right. But did she? Now Judah said to Onan, go into your brother's wife and marry her and raise up seed to your brother. But he's evil too, so he's spilling his seed on the ground, right? Which is a curse against God, who says, be fruitful and multiply. And this thing did not displease him, so he slew him as well. So then said Judah, something is wrong with this girl. I'm not going to let any more of my sons be with her because they keep dying. So in verse 11 it says, Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, remain a widow at your father's house till Shelah my son be grown. For he said, lest perhaps he die also as his brethren did. And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. Now, Leviticus 21:9 talks about the daughter of a priest. If she plays the role of a harlot, she's supposed to get killed, right? Stoned by death. But the man is also supposed to be strangled. So both of them would be in trouble if this were found out. So, okay. Now, it says in the process of time had gone on. Shelah was probably old enough for her to become his wife. Judah's wife died, and he was comforted and went up to his sheep shearers to Timnath, he and his friend Hira the Adullamite, who's leading him in the wrong direction. First of all, he's found him a Canaanite woman in the presence of this man. So what kind of person is Judah? He's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. So when Tamar sees him, she goes out and says, behold, and it was told to Tamar, your father-in-law goes up to Timnath to shear his sheep. And she put her widow's garments off from her and covered her with a veil and wrapped herself and sat in an open place, which is by the way to Timnath, for she saw that Shelah was grown and she was not giving him his wife. When Judah saw her, he thought her to be a harlot. He just made the assumption she was a harlot because she covered her face, which is what harlots, I guess, in that time period do. Nowadays, they just show everything. So she was made to look like a harlot. And he turned to her, by the way, and said, go to, or come now, I pray you, let me come into you. For he knew not that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, what will you give me that you may come into me, right? She's like, well, I'm about to get the bride price. Right? Mm-hmm. She didn't just give herself away. He was trying to give her a goat. She was like, no, I want that ring. Or signet, which is a ring. Nobody's laughing? Okay.
Yeah, because the goat would have been another sin offering,
Signet
right?
and bracelet.
I mean, in certain contexts, it could be sin when you're doing like an offering.
Because once you eat it,
But I mean, it was just supposed to be a gift.
Yeah, it's the
Right.
price.
you're going to eat the goat.
But it was a price for, this act. She's like, I'm going to get married to somebody. Third time's a charm. Okay. Nobody laughed at that. And he turned to her, by the way. I'm just not funny, I guess. Go to, I pray you, let me come into you, for he knew not that she was his daughter-in-law. And when she said, what will you give me that you may come into me? And he said, I will send you a kid from the flock. And she said, will you give me a pledge till you send it? Because, people can tell you, oh, I'll give you the money. And then they never show up. But she took collateral. She's not a whore.
Right.
And she said, what pledge shall I give you? And she said, your ring, your bracelets, and your staff. that is in your hand, and he gave it to her. That's her dowry. And came into her, and she conceived by him, and she arose, because God said the Messiah must come out of Judah. That's what this is showing us. So random. Just slip this in here.
One of the brothers. We're going to throw this story in.
Right. And there's Levitical law too, Leviticus 21:9, where a priest's daughter, if she's, I'm sorry, my notes are all over the place. Leviticus 22:13. Just read the book of Leviticus, guys. If she's a widow and she has no children, she can go back to her father and eat at his table, which lets us know she had not conceived as well. Okay. Now, so she conceived by Judah, and she arose and went away and laid by her veil from her, and put on the garments of her widowhood. And Judah sent the kid by the hand of his friend, the Adulamite, to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, but he found her not. And then he asked the men of that place. These are the Levite people now. Just because they're not called Levites don't mean they're not priests. Because we said she's Shem's daughter down the line.
Right.
They're like harlot. Ain't no harlot here. You got the wrong one. Because that's the curse on them.
Right.
She shames her father is what the scripture in Leviticus says. You shame your father by playing the harlot. But she didn't play no harlot. So they like, not today. And they kept reiterating that, which should have also clued us into the fact that, hey, what's going on? What's so special about this place? So Timnath also means, is it Timnath?
Yeah.
Where she had them babies? Means double? Okay, because she's going to get two. All right, now, and he returned to Judah and said, I cannot find her. Also the men of that place said, there is no harlot here. You in the wrong town. And Judah said, let her take it to her, lest we be shamed, because behold, I sent this kid, and you have not found her. And it came to pass 3 months later, Judah found out that Tamar was pregnant, and they said, she's played the harlot. Behold, she is with child by whoredom, meaning she's not married to anyone, even though she is. Because she's a priest, she could have ordained her own marriage. All right. So Judah, he went down to find out what's going on. He said, bring her here and burn her, right? Because that's what the law says. If the priest's daughter plays the harlot, she gets burned, and the person that's with her gets strangled. Which is why he was like, pump the brakes when he found out who it was. He was going to be dead. So it says they brought him to her, and she said, I am with child. Discern, I pray you, whose are these? Isn't that what they said to Jacob when they print the whose coat is this? So it's showing this little parallel. So she presented his items, and Judah acknowledged it and said, she's more righteous than I, because I gave her not to Shelah my son, and he knew her again no more. And it came to pass in the time of her travail that, behold, twins were in her womb. And that word in Hebrew, tinma, wherever they were at, that means double. So it came to pass when she travailed that the one put out his hand, and the midwife took it and bound upon him his hand a scarlet thread, saying, thus came out first. Scarlet thread. Remember that, guys. Okay, and it came to pass as he drew back his hand that, behold, his brother came out, and she said, how have you broken forth? Isn't Jesus breaking forth or something? There's a scripture in there, right, where Jesus breaking forth. Y'all know it. This breach be upon you, therefore his name is called Phares. And Phares is the one that Jesus comes out of. And afterward came his brother that had the scarlet thread upon his hand, and his name was called Zerah. Zerah is the one who atones, because they put a goat. They put a little string on, the red string on the goat, and it's miraculously supposed to turn white if we get atoned for our sins. Isn't this crazy? Did anyone see this? Like, never in my life have I read the book like this. Okay. So we're reading a lot, and I'm not taking many notes. Y'all put it in your head like I do. So now we back to Joseph, and you're just kind of like, I hope that makes sense, Tamar and Judah. Let me see. Let me look at my notes here. Yeah, atoning for sin. So she redeemed Judah. He didn't even know it, but she redeemed him. Okay, now back to Joseph, and we're at chapter 39. Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, brought him out of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down there. And the Lord was with Joseph. Now, this is why I said it's about faith, right? Because Joseph is going to go through some tests and some trials, but he's going to consistently shun evil, right? Okay, so God was with him, and Joseph was made prosperous, and he was in the house of the master of the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and observed him, and made him overseer of his house, and all that he had he put in his hand. And it came to pass that he made him overseer of his house. He blessed the Egyptian's house. God blessed the Egyptian's house for his sake. And the blessings of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. And all that he had was in Joseph's hand. And he knew not anything he had, save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a goodly person and well favored. And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph and said, "Lie with me." Now this woman was absolutely disgusting. Okay? She was just someone who couldn't control herself. They were going into great detail on how handsome Joseph was. And I'm just kind of like, control your evil. But she couldn't do it. Like, she made herself physically ill looking at this boy. Or this man now, because time, it keeps saying, and time has passed. And so, she wouldn't take no for an answer. And he refused and said to his master's wife, "Behold, my master knows not what is with me in the house, and he has committed all that he has to my hand." Meaning he trusted Joseph so much, he didn't know what was going on in the house. He didn't know anything about the numbers, the money coming in, anything. He just trusted Joseph that much because Joseph was a goodly person, right? That shunned evil. There is none in this house than I. Neither has he kept back anything from me but you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? And it came to pass, as she spoke to Joseph day by day, that he hearkened not to her to lie with her or to be with her. And it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none of the men of the house there inside. Why not? I know.
She said it away.
There's a festival going on.
What kind of festival?
Some type of Mardi Gras.
Well, let's think about this. We matched the Torah portion to the calendar of what's going on.
Oh, Yom Kippur? No.
So we're in the Torah portion right now reading, and he dwelt.
Feast of Booths?
What's happening right now? What pagan holiday is happening?
Christmas?
Winter solstice.
What?
They tracked it down.
Okay.
This is what's happening here. All the men are out of the house because they're all fornicating. They're all doing this pagan worship
Okay.
during the winter solstice,
Okay.
which is, it fell on the 25th, and some, because it cycles. So it's Christmas. And everybody's doing things they ain't supposed to do. What was that you said earlier, Apostle?
I don't know.
You don't remember now.
Winter solstice.
Yeah, so that's what's happening. That's why no one's around. So it's a pagan holiday, and this holiday is, I think it's Nimrod's holiday or
Yeah,
something.
she wanted to join in.
And what's the other lady, Asherah? Yeah, but it's, I mean, she just stayed there to be with him. She could have gone out. She chose not to.
She chose him.
Yeah. But it came to pass as she spoke, you know, so we're back to where we are. It's Christmas time. And she caught him by his garment, saying, "Lie with me." And he left his garment in her hand and fled and got him out. And it came to pass when she saw that he had left his garment, she's like, I'm going to lay a trap. That she called the men of the house and spoke to them, saying, see, he has brought this Hebrew into here to mock us. And I cried out with a loud voice. And it came to pass, when he heard that I lifted my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled and got him out. And she laid up his garment by her until her Lord came and spoke to him according to the word, saying, the Hebrew servant which you have brought to us came to mock me. And it came to pass, as I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled. And it came to pass, when his master heard the words of his saying, she's saying, where are we at? After this manner did your servant to me, that his wrath was kindled. So he was mad at Joseph. And he took him and put him in prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound. And he was there in the prison. And he was in there for 12 years. All right. And the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. Because God wants us to trust in him. Am I marking right up? Trust in him. So he's like being raised up. And he's being honored among, God bless you, among men. But God is wanting him to look to him. Right? Because we talked about, I was watching some of the videos, so I was uploading some videos. And God wants us to love him with all our heart, mind, and soul. And he wants us to trust him to bring us where we're supposed to be. So, Joseph, of course, is going to find favor with the keeper of the prison.
Yeah.
And they're going to make a relationship. He's going to put him in charge of everything. And yeah, and he was managing the prison. What's that, the warden?
Yeah.
Did you have a comment about the winter solstice?
I don't want to talk about it.
Right.
No, I did not. I learned something new. I didn't know it was that particular day.
Yeah. It shifts, but it fell on that day. And it came to pass, I'm in chapter 40. And they keep saying that it came to pass. Which I'm going to investigate that next year. That these things, that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended their lord, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was angry against his two officers. They gave him some bad food and some bad wine. So Pharaoh put them in prison so that they can be with Joseph. And they were in chains. They had dreams, weird dreams. These dreams eventually...
The dreams are crazy, right?
Yeah, the dreams eventually... Color an old book yellow, it's funny. The dreams eventually are prophesying their fate, their future. One's going to die, one's going to live. And when the one that lives gets out, Joseph says, tell Pharaoh what I can do. But he's going to forget because God makes it that way. Because God's the one that's going to bring him out of that situation. So Joseph ends up having to serve his full term. That's what we see in this chapter. Because at verse 23 it says, the chief butler did not remember Joseph but forgot him. But that was purpose. That's faith. God will remember you when he decides to. No, I'm just kidding. God remembers us. We just have to learn patience. Okay. I didn't really delve too much in that chapter. Next year I'm going to do it. I think what we'll do next year is like all the ones that we didn't dig into, we'll dig into them. That way it won't be like we're saying the same thing over and over. But I don't really think we can say the same thing in this place, right? Everything is new and fresh every morning. All right, so that's what I got. I covered all my notes. We kind of saw how Judah and Tamar relate to this story. And pulled out some Levirate laws and made references to atonement. So we did really good. All right? Okay, you guys can turn the camera on. Thanks for watching. That's it.
Oh, that was it?
That's it. I'm wrapping it up. Somebody made spaghetti.
It's a wrap.
It's over.